What's going on? Diablo, you're the nerd. 15 months worth of nerd. Everything is awesome. Thanks, Diablo, for committing to 15 months of the gym. And if you haven't yet, lovely shirts available on Risk Merch. Click the link below. You too can own a Risk Immersed amazing t-shirt. And or mat. I don't know if you've seen. I have this. It's it's got to be 3 feet long by 18 plus 20 inches. You know what I'm saying? Mat, mouse pad, and it has a huge Risk Immerse on it. It's amazing. It looks exactly like this, the mouse pad. It's pretty cool. Hashtag ad. Get her done. Again, all proceeds support Rise Above. How are you, Risk? Risk is doing okay. Been a crazy morning so far, really busy. Oh my gosh. Juicy! What's going on? How is Juicy today? Jammy Dingle. Diablo. What's going on, Will? Risk, I am great. Thank you, Juicy, for joining us. Happy. I've had kind of a crazy... Oh, Morg's here too. Morg, man. Peeking in. I see you. Throw your headphones on there, Willingham. Headphones above you to the left. Right. There you go. Oh, I got to adjust your camera too. Un momento, people. Un momento. Let's see if we can get Will to come in better here because he's
on, right?
I don't know. Left ear. The rope, the cord should go on your left side. Yep. There you go. I'm going to adjust your camera a little bit because it's looking a little funky. Funky. See if we can get you to come in better. I think part of it is lighting, too. I think the lighting's been off. There you go. You're looking a lot better. Let me scooch the camera down a smidge, too. Boop. 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 Fantastic. Everyone say hi to Will. Hi, Will. How was Will today? Yeah, my weekend was good. My son won state champions in soccer, high school state champion for the state of Michigan for his high school category, whatever division they're in. That's the word I'm looking for. Very, 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 very congrats to my son and his team. They had a phenomenal year. Not the cleanest year. There wasn't a perfect 20-0 type of thing. It was like a 16-2-1 type of a record. But yeah, state champs, pretty excited for him. And the best part was the winning goal was 22 seconds left in the game. It was pretty crazy. So literally the very end of the possible moment, almost like a Hollywood movie type thing. It was pretty cool. The kids were really excited. The other team was devastated, sobbing like little children. Well, because they were little children. Yeah, it was exciting. The parents were a little over the top. There's a story there, but we won't go into it. But what else happened this weekend? That's it. It was just soccer. I did nothing all day yesterday. It was amazing. It was glorious, as they say. Put your mic in so people can actually hear you talk. There you go. Grab up here. Don't grab by here. Grab there. There you go. Yeah, there you go.
Way, way long.
There, now everyone can hear.
Yeah,
Yay!
Yeah, I didn't do anything this weekend either.
Oh, we had two followers. We got Jamie and Liam. Hey, Liam, what's happening, buddy? Long time no see. Everyone have a good weekend? What happened in everyone else's weekend? What happened in your weekend?
Well, I didn't do much. Cleaned a lot.
Cleaned a lot.
Did some housework.
Are you a clean freak?
No, but we're kind of in the process of trying to clean out the basement with a bunch of storage and stuff. So we're doing just a lot upstairs.
Yeah.
And make room for stuff. But then I watched a lot of Dota. There was a tournament this weekend, and yeah.
Anybody else a big Dota fan? So explain the Dota thing for you.
Yeah, so it's like League, except for Dota came from Warcraft 3, a much older game, and it's just like a MOBA 5v5. It's really intense. There's a lot of mechanics. Really hard. I'm pretty bad at it. So
there was somebody here that was a big. Was it Liam? Are you the big Dota fan? I thought it was one of you guys that was a big Dota fan. Who was it? Schwam is. I gotcha. Risk dude. Don't risk dude me nothing. Welcome to the gym there, Liam. Appreciate you, man. If I know anything, Schwam is the biggest Dota fan. Yeah.
I love watching it because it's kind of like I know enough about the game where I know that what they're doing is insane. Like, and I could never do it. So it's like really cool to watch.
I'll be honest with you. I can't get into Dota.
Yeah.
I mean, I watch a lot of games. I can't do it. It's something about the click, that the billion clicks. Like I tried my hardest because so many people watch Dota. Like it's huge.
Oh, it's huge.
I mean, I'm missing out. I'm for sure I'm missing out on something. And I watched apparently the biggest streamer of it, whatever. He's got like 1 million people watching at one time or something like that, 100,000 people, whatever. And all you can hear constantly in the background is that spam clicking like a bajillion times. And I was like, what is happening right now? But
yeah.
So are you big into it? Do you play it a lot too, or just watch it?
I play it, but not like a lot.
Yeah.
I don't play ranked at all. I'm super casual, and I'm not very good. It's just something fun to do,
Yeah.
But yeah, I love watching it. It's like watching football for me.
Really?
Oh yeah, follow the players, teams, everything.
Really?
Get alerts on my phone.
Yeah.
That's
so awesome. Yeah. I didn't know. See, again, great. I know Dota is huge, but again, I can't wrap my brain around this thing that it's that huge, that it has its own little.
Yeah, I was super bummed because the big tournament this summer didn't happen.
Oh, because the whole COVID thing. Yeah.
But yeah, the prize pool is supposed to be 35 million. Yeah.
I'm in the wrong profession.
Yeah, I was gonna say I should. Well, they play 9 hours a day, practice, stuff like that.
That's nuts.
Yeah.
Will is a nerd confirmed. Yep.
Oh, I'm such a huge nerd. Oh my gosh.
Morg's like, I like him.
Yeah. That's not even.
That's so awesome.
Dota's pretty mainstream. That's
crazy. So my context, my closest context would be like a CS:GO.
Okay.
Where a Counter-Strike, where you had that type of a prize pool, but $35 million.
Yeah.
Prize pool for a video game just blows my mind.
Yeah.
My kid just won state finals, and they got a little medal in a piece of wood plaque to hang in the school. There was no $35 million. That's an accomplishment, and they didn't get nothing.
And it's kind of weird. It's kind of weird how that happens.
I mean, for $35 million, why aren't they all trying to get good and split the pie? Well, anyway,
Yeah. But they have coaches and managers, and so a team is like an organization, right? Mm-hmm. It's not just like the 5 players. So.
Yeah. It's not like you called your buddy, hey, you want to go to this Dota thing this weekend?
Yeah.
I can't be selling cool. I get the tickets. Yeah. It's pretty intense.
Oh yeah.
Hey Andy, what's going on? How is the Andy Littleton doing today? I will say, Andy, if you're indeed here and indeed listening, because I know you're either just getting off work or about to leave work, there was a marked difference, and I know everybody in this chat hangs out in your stream as well. There was a marked difference between you last week and the week before. Hey, Boost, what's going on? Simply because of that whole end-of-year counting thing that you had to do. You were a different man after that was done. There was like this weight lifted off of you. It was incredible to see the real Andy and not that stressed being that was there for 3 or 4 days before as you built up to that end-of-year crap. So good to have the old Andy back, by the way. Boost, how you doing, man? Hope everything's well. Who else is here today? Maybe we got all the crowd here today. I love it. Boost. Liam, Jamie, who else? Dr. 3, owned by Connor. Others, all the people that followed last week, huge thanks. Those were all offline follows and stuff like that. Andy, I think you had something to do with that because you were really complimentary last week to me and into the stream and everything that we did. So, or do, I should say. And Andy, thanks for gifting a sub to Boost. Boost, welcome to the gym. You, sir, are now officially a member of the gym, and as you previously posted, you will not be allowed to skip leg day. It's a thing. Last week, we played a game called Scum. I sucked horribly. I even tried to play it a little bit offline afterwards to try and make it better. So if we ever played it again, I might have some stuff to actually do better at it and to not look like a total noob playing it. It didn't go well. Let's just say it didn't go well. I did not achieve what I hoped to achieve.
Yeah.
I actually looked into ways of not cheating the game, but somehow buffing the game a little bit.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Going back into the mechanics of the game and trying to increase loot spawn rates and things like that, just to give me a fighting chance, you know? Give the old Risk Immersed a chance, you know?
Yeah.
I did I did find my way. I went in and I increased the loot tables slightly.
Yeah.
I went back in, had no extra success, so I rather appropriately backed out of the game to catch my composure and to try again another day. It was not. It was a futile attempt, let us say. But the stream before that, we talked about courage. And that's kind of what I want to talk to you a little bit about today in the context of Rise Above. Because it's one thing for me to come on and talk to you guys about it and to kind of explore what courage is in the context of who we are as a group here and whatnot. But I think it's really important to take a deep dive on occasion and to even talk about contextually what it means. No problem, Morg. Come back soon, kiddo. What it means to have courage in the context of the work that we do. And I kind of want to explore that with you today, if possible. Just a smidge. And so we talked about courage in the context of several different veins last 2 streams ago. The first was this idea of spiritual courage, you know, being people of faith. We you know, as believers, we're called out to do things that are hard, you know, that take, you know, certain types of spiritual courage to complete. There's physical courage, like we talked about, you know, the military thing where you run into the face of danger, you know, 9/11 type stuff where firefighters ran into burning buildings that just after watching one collapse, they were still running into the second tower type of thing. That's a different type of courage, right? There's an emotional courage. There's all kinds of. Would you say that our students coming into Rise Above display courage? And if so, what types of courage do you think that our students typically display, and how do they display it generally, do you think?
Yeah. First of all, any new environment for a student, you know, new school. I don't know if any of you like moved around a lot and gone to a new school for the first time. That's insanely difficult. You know, that in itself is a huge step of courage. So every student, you know, I can tell right in the interview, they experience that. They're scoping it out. They're looking at the people, all that stuff. So that's like probably the baseline courage, I would say, that any student coming in here would have to face that.
So would you equate that to like a job interview?
Oh yeah.
Would it be easier, harder, the same as like what's?
It's harder because in a job interview, you're not assumed to have done anything wrong. These kids coming in, they already have a target or a mark on them from their perspective. I've done something wrong. Now I have to go talk to these people. It's like getting reprimanded by a parent, you know, and then you're going into an interview with people you've never met. Yeah. Right.
Juicy, explain that a little bit as we talk through this. I want to know what you mean by that. Being a military family your whole life, definitely can relate to that.
Yeah.
So do you think that is it them having the courage to try and that they have to look past it and say I can do this? Or is it a courage to say, oh my gosh, I got to go in there and I got to explain to these people why I did what I did? And is it that type of a courage?
Yeah, so the first one is that first level, you know, and then the second one is because of why they're there.
Yeah.
Right? And then that's what you're talking about. I think that they have to overcome it to some degree.
Yeah.
Now, there's 2 different ways. One is to, you know, own it and admit to it.
Yeah.
And the other is to ignore it or rationalize it or whatever, right? Those are the 2 ways they face that fear or that feeling.
Yeah. So we talked about that idea of being fearful or being fearless, right? This idea of fearless, generally I generally equate to carelessness.
Yeah.
When you are fearless, you know. So do you think there's an element of fear involved in that they're consciously tackling that fear, or they're doing it because they're being dragged into?
A lot of times it's dragged. at least into the interview.
Yeah.
You know, I haven't met a lot of students that
What's up, Uncle Jim?
would love to do the interview or start it, you know?
Yeah.
There's always someone from their kind of bringing them in
from their inner circle, so to speak.
Grandma, whatever.
Yeah.
But it's once they're in the interview where they make the decision, right, to
engage,
and that is to attempt to overcome their fear. And that is mostly, in my opinion, not about a new place or a new whatever. It's about the fear of who they are and their view of themselves, because they've done something wrong. They're in this situation. They feel like they're failing to some degree. They have to have the courage to look at their life and be like, I want to continue to try. And I think these people will be the best to help.
Yeah.
So that's the courage that I think our students face a lot more than other students in terms of being in a new place.
Yeah. So Juicy is making a comparison, saying is that because of being in the military family, she had to move around all the time and start new schools all the time. I guess it's not, I guess. It definitely is similar in a lot of ways to that.
Yeah.
Some of the students, I think, also get the idea that we're the last option.
Yeah.
Like beyond us, there's nothing else that they have as a choice school-wise.
Yeah.
For the most part. A lot of their schools have just said, that we have nothing else for you, right?
Yeah.
But Uncle Jim, how are you, buddy? Thanks for coming in. You know, Uncle Jim, you've been here 14 months, guy. 14 months. You're one of the early adopters. You got to be like fit as a fiddle right now. You got to have biceps as big as mine. Rabbi, welcome in, buddy. Hey, Rabbi, guess what? A little good news. A little break in the conversation for a second here. Best Buy, one of our stream sponsors, just big money, no whammies, just gave us another $15,000 towards tech.
Sweet.
So thanks, Jim. I appreciate that, buddy. Yeah, so Best Buy just chipped in again towards Rise Above and towards our tech for our kids. It was they're giving specifically towards our COVID relief stuff and to kind of help us build Wi-Fi, or not build, but get Wi-Fi hotspots, get more PCs or other tech as need be, plus our new space downstairs. For those of you that don't know, well, I'll actually take some pictures sometime and display them.
The game room.
Yeah.
Tech 2, that'd be awesome.
To put the whole new computer and all that jazz in there. So, that's a huge shout out to Best Buy, guys. That huge. It's amazing to me that they continue to do this. I'm gonna fiddle with your camera a little bit more.
Okay. Do I need to sit lower?
No, you're fine. You look a little washed out, and it's not because you don't tan. I think I can do.
I do tan. Better. I have some. Not Middle Eastern descent, but I get like olivey,
Yeah.
Like, so if you ever go to Israel, right, and you see people who are on the sun all the time, they're kind of like olivey. So I get that, but I'm just like, been inside.
I know the lights are both set to be similar, but I have to say we're pretty excited about this this coming year and everything that's going on funding wise. And we just got the big $150,000 grant there a week and a half ago, 2 weeks ago. You have the same complexion as you might have guessed. Yeah. So our kids come in, back to what we're saying. So our kids come in, new school, knowing it's the last opportunity.
Yep.
They display some element of courage, whether partially forced or not.
Right.
Because again, the comparison I always fall back on, and Juicy, you may understand this a little bit as well, contextually, from the military standpoint, because a lot of the courage in the military comes from the idea of it's forced. You're told to go that direction. You're to march that way.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know what's over there. You're going that way. Point your stuff that way. You don't really have much of a choice to say, no, I'm going to go that way, right? So what oftentimes I think looks like courage is masked in a veil of forced march. And I think a lot of our kids come into our program in a veil of that forced march.
Oh, yeah.
So what, early people seeing kids come in, if they're not paying attention, we can miss the fact that they're scared out of their mind. There's no courage involved at all in this kid. They're literally, and you can see it in their head generally, in the sense that they walk in and their head is down.
Yep.
I just don't even want to look at you, because if I look at you, it's going to fully hit me, the realization of where I'm at and what I'm about to go through. Yeah. Do you see that when you do the interviews and stuff like that? So for those of you that don't know, you're a big part of the interview process.
Yeah. Yeah, I help with all of the transitioning students into Rise Above and out of Rise Above. So I do a lot of the contact work, a lot of the introduction, orientation, interview. Yep. Yeah, I'm like the first face, the person at the desk when you walk into whatever.
Welcome back, Morg. Yeah, exactly, Rabbi. Intake.
Yeah, exactly. So
yeah, you tour the kids, the building, the whole. Like, you're literally the first face they meet besides my wife.
Yes. Yeah.
Besides Veronica.
And I actually don't have any background in social work. My undergrad is in camping ministry, so it's like summer camp type of stuff, or retreat centers. And then my graduate degree is in Christian formation. So it's like everything to be a pastor except for language and whatever. But yeah, so I am actually a helper. So that's where that social work comes from. I just love, like, everything I do, I want to just help people. Yeah. So anyways, back to the students. I can totally tell when a student is like super not about this. Like you said, their head is down. They don't usually look at me. They like, oh man, how they talk is just totally different. And then there's the other type of student.
So our job in that, so to explain, we've really got to be perceptive. You're paying attention to body language, not just from them to you, but them to their parent or to whoever's brought them in. That kind of like you're looking for anything from rolling of eyes to angry faces to the smile, like little smiles or smirks that you're getting, little hints along the way, you know?
Yeah.
Sorry, go on. Yeah.
And the whole point of the tour, in my mind, is to move them from a place of forced march to, hey, I want to listen to this guy, at least hear what he says. And yeah, showing them the place is kind of important, but not as important as them experiencing me in a way that makes them feel comfortable. And so whether it's jokes, I don't know if you've heard me do the interview, but I try and weave in as many funny things or as many things, because I'm kind of like a goofy guy, and I'm like genuine, I don't care, whatever. So I just am myself and like try and be open so that they feel like they can be open.
Yeah.
But I can definitely, if you tell me a student name that I've interviewed, I can tell you whether or not they were receptive during the tour or not. And I clearly know that, because right when we sit down, their attitude, whether it's the same when they walked in or when it's different.
You can feel it.
Yeah.
You know, 100% you know.
Yeah.
In Rabbi, I don't know, how involved, Rabbi, are you in the day-to-day operations of what you do? You know, whether you do with your clients and stuff like that. How involved are you, bud? Do you find that one particular thing informs where a kid lands on the spectrum of engaged or disengaged? Example, parental engagement, reason for joining behavior. Do you find that? I'll answer a little bit to that too, but I'm curious how you feel about that first. Do you find that there is one particular thing that informs you where they land?
Like one thing that I notice from them, or one thing that is consistent?
Or even a couple of different things. What are the things that generally are big cues to you about?
Yeah.
And then I'll add to that question as well in a second.
Give me a second. You answer first.
Yeah. So for me, one of the big things, one of the big tells for me right off the right off the bat, obviously, is that head, the body language of the student tells me right away where a student's at. But I not second guess that. I use that as a starting point. The second thing that I look at, because personality sometimes will drive that. If the student is very introverted, they'll naturally avoid eye contact, not because of a disdain for something, but just because of a discomfort. That this is not normal for me. You're new. I don't know who you are. I feel uncomfortable. So it's not like I don't want to engage. It's a natural. I just have to put a barrier up for a second so I feel comfortable. The next thing I look at is their willingness to participate in the interview process. How flippant are they? How honest are they? How transparent are they? All of the key things that I look for generally involve their response.
Yeah.
To me, in whether I perceive them to be truthful or not. And I say perceive them to be truthful because honestly, it's a perception. I mean, it's just a honed skill that you learn over time of when a student is being truthful or not. But
so, okay, one particular thing lands on the spectrum. A kid who comes in with a very disengaged parent will be automatically more engaged in their life. A student who comes in with a very forceful parent will be more disengaged. So I've had more trouble connecting with more disengaged students because of that than because of whatever they did, right?
Yep.
It doesn't matter. There's a girl in recently who she was very upfront with me. She was very honest. She was very engaged with the whole process and engaged that she didn't want to do it. And it was the first student where they outright told me about hard drug use to my face. And I was like, okay, she's honest, she cares, but she didn't want to do it. And that student, because she's already engaged, would have been much easier to swing on board and have her make that choice and be successful here versus a student that's disengaged. And so I think the big thing is parental influence, not that just that day, but their whole life, right?
Yeah. Oh,
Has
absolutely.
a parent been out of their life most of their life or not?
To add to that, though, the parent on that day can make or break.
Oh, yeah.
And that was the point I was talking about when on your tour, you're watching for those visual cues of how they're looking at their parent and how the parent's looking at them. So to answer your question, parental engagement very much can determine whether a student is successful. Because we've had times where we've said, you know what, parent, can I talk to your student alone for a second? And we've excused the parent.
Yeah.
Just because we know that the parent is negatively influencing the outcome of that interview.
Yeah.
And for us, so to get to your second point about how you guys do stuff with your facility and with the social workers that you have in-house. So our intake, really has, how do I say this? It has very little to do with any outcomes that we're trying to produce in that moment. We're not trying to produce an outcome outside of get an answer yes or no.
Yeah.
That's all we're trying to produce. It's purely informational. Hey, this is who we are. This is what we do. And then some questions on our part. Hey, who are you? What do you do? What do you not like to do?
Yeah.
It's not really a resolution moment where we're trying to solve anything. We're just gathering details.
Yep.
The only thing that we get to is in the second half of the interview when Nick steps in, and you for the most part, you guys know who Nick is, but we can bring him in another time. The second half is where we say, kind of raise the bar one notch and say, but now that we know this, here are our expectations. Do you want to do it? Knowing that we're going to respond to you in this way over a certain period of time, is this something you want to do? And that's where, now back to your original question, parental engagement, that typically is where a parent needs to be excused.
Yeah.
When we have to do it. When a parent can be overly engaged in some way, either forcefully or,
Luckily, we haven't had many of that.
No, we don't. We definitely have not had many. Nick's the cool hat dude, right, Mark? Do you think that engagement is a product of rebellion from the parents?
It totally depends. So a lot of middle schoolers go right in line with whatever their mom or dad are doing. They don't notice it yet. But a lot of the high schoolers, whether if their parent's an addict or if their parent is disengaged or if their parent, doesn't care, they do rebel from that. And so some of the most successful students that we've had are students that don't have consistent parental.
The ones with the most broken parental system.
Yes, because they see it.
Yeah.
But if we were to take them as a middle schooler, they might not have seen it. And so it's
I would
kind
agree
of
with
like,
that.
I don't know if there's a term, but the mental maturity threshold of knowing what they need to do.
Yeah, when they have that eureka moment of, holy crap, I can control this thing.
Yeah.
And
a lot of ways, we try and get students there in that interview process. We try and like present this idea, like, hey, your life could be your choice.
Yeah.
And
you're the decision maker. Yeah. And that's our interview process. That's our interview process. To answer part of your question, Rabbi, our interview process is the first step in them making the decisions for themselves. Where we plant the seed of, hey, you are absolutely in control of the next step in your journey. If this is a choose your own adventure, here's the first question in the book.
Yeah.
Right? This is your first opportunity to decide, do you want to turn left on this street or do you want to turn right on the street? Right?
Yeah.
And we give them that option. I keep hearing your name, Jim. That's funny. So I would agree to some extent, but it's a 50-50.
Oh, yeah.
So do I think that engagement is a product of rebellion from the parents that, I don't want to be like my mom, whatever the case is? Yes, a lot of time it is definitely that. But a lot of our students come in very much afraid of their parents. Where they've been traumatized from the event, right, or from a series of events that's gotten them to the point they've gotten to us. And a parent has absolutely beat on a student, physically, emotionally, whatever that thing might be. And that student just does not want to, like, they're looking, every answer they're giving, they're looking out of the corner of their eye. Is this what my parent wants me to say? Because you got to remember, a lot of our kids come to us from homes where social workers are involved, DHHS is involved, and my mom coaches me before they come to the house because I got to say the thing that makes them not take me away.
Yeah.
Or I got to say the thing that makes them give my mom that check every month or whatever that thing is, And so a lot of these kids are coached to respond.
Yeah.
And if they don't respond correctly, parents are overtly corrective.
Oh, yeah.
And that's why, one of the legs that we stand on is that we treat each student as an individual. That's why we can't have thousands of kids in here. And today we don't. That's a long story. But the reality is, if we don't look at each kid as an individual, we're going to miss an opportunity to see, hey, this kid as a parent who is overly controlling of this student's life. And if the student doesn't feel empowered to take a step of faith, a step of courage, even though they feel like they're in a place to do it, we're going to miss an opportunity.
Yeah.
So we absolutely look at every situation separately and say, okay, does this parent constrain their student, or do they help their student be free, whether intentionally or not? Some students help their student be free just by the sheer fact that they're an addict and have no engagement in their students' lives.
They're forced to be free.
Yeah, they have no choice but to be free. I don't think effective programs fix any problems for kids. We would agree.
Yeah.
We try to provide perspective and inform kids to learn who they are. And come to terms with the traumas they've faced and provide them with tools to develop skills. Some of that is empowering students, understanding independence of parents.
Yep.
So I talked about this 2 weeks ago. I don't know if I've ever told you about my nephew who came to live with me for a while. I had a nephew whose mom was horrible example. She lived in Detroit with him, abject poverty, like literally would go rent a house, pay, first and last month's rent, whatever the case was, and then never pay rent again and just wait to be evicted. Every 6 months they're bouncing from place to place to place to place. He'd go get a part-time job somewhere. She'd steal all his money to do whatever with. And so he wasn't going to graduate high school. So he came to visit me one weekend and said, hey, can I stay with you for a weekend, kind of hang out, because we always got along. And while he was with us, one of the conversations I had with him, and this is pre-Rise Above. This is before Rise Above existed. I was still getting my degree. I said to him, why do you stay home? He's 17 years old. I said, why do you stay home? I said, why don't you just stay with us? I said, you could just stay here. Yeah, we'll get. He was taking E2020 at the time. It was my first exposure to E2020.
Oh, wow.
So it's kind of like this weird kind of setup, how I was kind of like getting introduced to E2020, and it was just weird. Well, it wasn't weird. I know exactly what's going on.
Yeah.
But I said, why don't you stay with us for a period of time? We'll get you through your high school, get you to graduation. And I said to him, Rabbi, your mom's a big girl. She's going to be okay without you. Your job is not to parent your parent.
Yeah.
Your main concern now is to get you through these next couple of years, get you a degree, get you a job. And then once you've got that, if you want to come back and help your mom in some way, help your mom. But right now, you're not helping anything by doing nothing.
Yeah.
And it was a long, hard decision, but he ended up staying with us for 6 months. We got him through that period. he immediately moved down to Georgia, finished his high school degree, became a Marine, and is now, I mean, he's 5 years into this now?
Yeah.
Into being a Marine. He's doing well. He's now got a wife and kids, and, you know, and now he visits his mom and everything's healthy. But if he just stayed home, he never would have been able to do all that stuff. So, but yeah, what you're saying, Rabbi, is exactly what we do here.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
We don't teach kids necessarily anything. We provide them opportunities to learn from themselves and to make decisions for themselves.
Yeah, and that's a huge part of my job. I do anything the student asks that they want to do.
Yeah.
Hey, I want to get a job. I do that. I help them with that. You know.
Yep. Absolutely.
The student opens the door, and I show them a path. That's like my whole job.
So one of the so exactly what to the point. One of my blessings in this community is the fact that I know a lot of businesses. I know a lot of people. I have access to a phenomenal group of business owners and managers and vice presidents and presidents and political people and judges, lawyers, all the things, you know? Yep. And so very often I get an opportunity where a student will call me and say, hey, Mr. Finch, can you help me find a job or whatever the case is? And I will take students to an interview. And I tell students right up front, I know this guy. So this is all I'm doing for you. Is I'm going to take you to the interview. I'm going to sit in the interview with you, and I'm going to say nothing.
Yeah.
Your job is to get the job, not mine. I'm not guaranteeing you anything. All I'm going to do is help you get the interview. The rest is your responsibility. I've not asked this person to hire you. I've asked them to give you an interview. So, game on. Let's go.
Yeah.
You know?
Which I think is like the whole teaching them how to fish type of thing.
Well, and some of it too, and part of it, you know, I talk about this very often. This is why I don't want our program to be 100% free. This is why I want the parents to drive in the student instead of us doing everything for them.
Yeah.
When you give things away for free, so I give you a new car, right? Versus you going and buying a car. I guarantee you that if you buy the car, you will take much better care of that car than the one I gave you.
Yeah.
So if I go and I give you a job, I called John Smith, he's going to hire you, just show up tomorrow. He's going to pay you $15 an hour, away you go. You're going to be absolutely willing on a moment's notice to just walk away from that job.
Right.
Because you have no buy-in, you have no commitment.
Yeah.
No ownership to what is invested there.
Yeah.
There's no value to you. Right? As my dad used to say, you got no skin in the game, you know?
Yeah. Classic dad thing to say.
And I tell you, my dad, very well off, you know, he does very well. He has, and I pause here for a second for a reason. Up until 2 weeks ago, my dad has never given me money just for the sake of giving me money. Here's $500 because I love you type of thing. He helped pay for my school and stuff like that as a kid. At university, but he never, as an adult, has come up and said, you know what, I make X, Y, Z, so here's $500, you know, $50 for your birthday or something like that, whatever. And then for the first time 2 weeks ago, my dad gave me money. Never. And I almost started to cry in my kitchen because I'm thinking, what is going on with my dad?
Yeah.
He's never done this before. It was a crazy moment. I'm sorry, I missed a whole bunch of chat here. God, if I had a nickel for every time I was told I was parenting my parents. Explain that, Jim. What do you mean? So why were you parenting your parents? It's crazy to make that step, though, to make the step to do what you. It is. It's explain. So talk about that a little bit. Is there a pivotal moment in a student's life journey here at Rise Above where you see that happen, where it just clicks? You think? I mean, you don't see it I don't think we see it with every student, but I think we've seen it definitely with some students.
Yeah. So. The most clear examples I have
absolutely, Rabbi,
of this is there's one student where he didn't really buy in, and then it was one of my first students, and then he got in, and then he wasn't doing any work. He was sleeping all day, and then we had a meeting with him and his dad, and then the next week he worked like crazy, and he finished all of his classes in half the time that he had. Mm-hmm. And it was like, boom, it was a switch.
Yeah.
I think a lot of the students that have that switch have it right in the beginning, right, with the interview, choosing to come. But then they have it especially during their first, I don't know, maybe you call it a meltdown. Their first conflict at Rise Above.
Yeah, absolutely.
That is when the switch happens, right? And I'll explain in a little bit, but I wanna see this. I see. Maybe. So that switch when the first conflict happens at Rise Above, a lot of students who come are not opening up because they don't want to, I don't know what the right word is, but like show themselves, be open, their true selves to us until like something happens where they get mad. Another student makes them mad. Another, like a teacher.
So do you think do you think they don't open up to us until that moment because they don't trust that we'll not just be like everybody else?
Yes.
Do you think
100%.
that's what it is?
Uh-huh.
So they're expecting us to overreact just like
Yep.
the schools did, just like
Yep.
their parents do, just like, we got to take something away because you did X, Y, Z.
And when we sit with them for 2 hours and they don't say anything, and then at the end we say, hey, I care about you. You're not going home. You're going to...
We're sticking right with you. Nothing's changed.
Whoa. Wait a second. What do you mean? This isn't supposed to happen. I do this reaction. Everybody does this. I get to be by myself.
Yeah.
Back to where my comfort zone is if nobody likes me, I'm not doing anything good, so that's what I like to do.
Yep.
But yet you're still sticking with me. That is the switch point for a lot of students, a ton of students.
Yeah, where they finally go, okay, this guy really is sold out.
Yeah. Whether it happens in your office, in my office, in the classroom, it doesn't matter,
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Uncle Jim wrote a story here. Let's read it. My dad basically stopped growing medically. Hey, my dad. That's cool. Oh, that's your dad. Wasn't good with money. Didn't have strong aspirations in life. Didn't know how to help me through high school because still in that mindset. Yeah, as such, I spent most of my high school helping my dad through his struggles. So, Jim, was your dad super young when you were born? Like, my dad was 18 when my brother was born, and was 23 when he had me.
Yeah.
So my dad literally was 15 years old, just barely into adulthood when he was a parent. So, you guys know my past. My childhood was a mess. Really? So you had older parents. So they just didn't mature. He was still living his childhood. Do you guys also find that kids who are resistant to start but come to love some of the program benefiting most? I'll let you answer that one.
Yeah.
Rabbi's question there.
Kids come in not wanting to come here?
Do you guys also find that kids who are resistant to coming to Rise Above, but then come to love the program, end up being the most vocal advocates?
Yeah. So
either internally or externally.
Almost every kid comes in not wanting to come here, and almost every kid who leaves successfully leaves not wanting to leave.
Yeah.
Every time.
I would say 90+%.
Oh my goodness, yes. Now, when I say successfully, I mean stay with the schedule and like have a official exit report meeting with the school, like, hey, we're going back. Yeah. And it's crazy. Yeah, that totally happens. Totally.
Yeah, and it breaks your heart.
Yeah.
I'll be honest, because because you want to journey with a student to completion. And if you don't send them back to school, there's no completion.
Yeah.
Right? It's another unfinished thing in their lives. Yeah. You need to hold their hand right to that final moment to back to school to say you did it.
Yep.
And that's what we find happens with students when you talked earlier about the acceleration that happens very often with students who Jacob to me is a perfect example of a student who started off slowly, but has recently had a ton of success.
A ton.
And he accelerated to the finish line last week.
Yeah.
Because he was like, oh my gosh, holy crap, I'm doing this. And look at all this praise I'm getting. And
wait, you're saying I can finish a class? Wait, you're saying I can get an A? Wait. You're saying that I can...
Yeah, like it was just this whole revelation. And then suddenly he just was like, yep, notes, yep, Nick, sit with me, yep, let's go, do. And his behavior even changed.
Oh
like
my
the kid mellowed right out because his focus shifted. And it was just it was narrowed in on one spot as opposed to this wide range of blah, And it gets misunderstood a lot, right? That craziness, because when kids have no focus, And that, I'm telling you, so part of what I wanted to talk about today is, so yeah, we're talking about the idea of courage and stuff like that. And so there's this thing right now going around the world. You might have heard of it, COVID. I don't know if it's this little,
what?
I don't know, it's like this flu or something. And so what's happened is schools basically have, in our community, I won't say everywhere, but in our community have offered students the opportunity to work from home. And to make the decision to not go to school and to do traditional schoolwork.
Hold on, Jim gave a response about his dad.
Oh, my dad basically didn't grow up after Vietnam. He was a stateside courtman and was so broken by what had happened to his buddies that he fell into drug. Yes.
Yeah, trauma. It stops.
Yeah, absolutely.
Emotional, yeah, 100%.
Yep.
I mean, I'm not 100%. I don't know.
So, Jim, just to give you some context, I meet every Monday with a really good friend of mine. He's now in his 70s, who was a Vietnam-era vet as well, but served overseas in Vietnam in combat. COVID, is that a video sharing thing? And has still underlying adverse effects to his time overseas from seeing his buddies and a fellow Army buddies getting injured and killed in line of action. Yeah. I get that. I guess the question for you is did your dad ever receive help with that, or was it something? Has he overcome it? Is he still struggling with it? I'd be curious if he's overcome it, how he got over it. Never forgave himself.
Thanks for sharing that.
That's huge.
It is.
So yeah, my dad just never grew up.
Yeah.
Literally, he has no, I don't know what excuse he's got, to be honest with you. I think the thing for him is he's an only child. And he was so in Portugal, where my family is from, moms are really overbearing. Yeah, that's survivor's guilt. That's exactly I was trying to think of the phrase. Thank you, Rabbi. Moms are really overbearing to begin with. Couple that with being an only child and an only boy.
Yeah.
In a Portuguese family, my father was spoiled to the nth degree. And so he's always had this all about me mentality.
Yeah.
And that includes financially. That's why when I say to him, hey, Dad, why don't you start a foundation and give to organizations like Rise? Don't give to Rise Above unless you want to, but organizations like Rise Above, nonprofits, basically, is what I was saying. Why would I do that? They don't need my money. I work for you. He doesn't understand the concept of, because he's I hate to say I love him to death. He's a little selfish. Now, I think, and again, that's why I was so touched by the gift that he gave. I was like, that is just not my dad.
Yeah.
And the revelation that I had was that something is shifting in him. And Rabbi, you said it earlier, this idea of, a love offering from my dad as he goes into retirement. I think he's starting to realize his mortality a little bit, and he's trying to figure out what to do with that. So Dad never forgave himself for not shipping overseas for his guilt. My dad passed away almost 2 years ago due to heart problems associated with living on the streets and developing a meth addiction. I'm sorry to hear that, Jim. I didn't know that. What part of that were you involved with? Any of it? My dad sounds so much like your dad. I'm sorry to hear, TX. I can tell you, Jim, that a lot of our students, as teenagers, are doing exactly or working through exactly what you're working through or worked through. And I couldn't imagine, being an adult going through it, let alone 15, 16, 12-year-old kid, how devastating it would be. Just how do you even... So I had the opportunity this past Friday. So I digress a smidge here just to make a point. This past Friday, I had an opportunity to go speak with one of our local senators for the state of Michigan. In a small group of 10 of us to go speak with him invite only type thing. Anyways, long story short, we talked about how, I'm trying to remember the exact wording of it, but basically it was just this idea of, I've lost it. It blew my, let me go back and see if I can figure out what I was getting at there. Let me go back and read what you were talking about.
Uncle Jim, I don't want you to feel guilt about that at all. Bro, I don't know if you do or not, but I'm just some random guy you just met, but it sounds like you have a heart that just cares. And so, yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, it's nuts.
Yep.
So all this to get to, we'll come back to the senator thing if I remember. All this to get to, so now we have COVID.
Mm-hmm.
We have students who are in these broken homes, a lot of them, who are coping or were coping because of their daily interaction with school.
Yeah.
I have an escape. I can get away from my family for a minute and go be normal with my friends at school, whatever that normal looks and feels like at school. Where I don't have this shadow of my home staring at me. I can, just go and do my math and all that kind of stuff. Oh, that's what I was going to get with the senator, was the idea of math, is that I was there at this meeting and another academic was there, and they were talking about how we gotta we gotta get kids in school or no, gotta allow the kids to stay home because they at least can do their math from there and get credits done and everything else. And I said, what point is it going to be when a kid is sitting down to do math and his mom is in the next room drunk out of her skull?
Yeah.
Or dad's in the other room beating mom, or whatever the thing is, whatever dysfunction is in the house that typically is going on when that student is at school. The student now is expected to do not only math forget about math at school with a thought of what's going on at home, but now I've got to do math, the same math at home in the midst of what's going on.
Yeah.
So now we have the person was bold enough to then say, well, the student just doesn't want to go to school because they're so traumatized, and I'm like, that's exactly why.
Yeah.
How do you even begin to have impact on a student you don't even see anymore?
Yeah.
Right? Because that's one of the things that we talk about all the time here is that, even if the absolute worst thing happens, the last thing I want to do is to send you home because I no longer have influence on you. Once I kick you out, what good is that? There's a lot being said in chat, and I'm going to come back to it. So I want to talk about so what you talk about what we've now designed here since June and what we launched today.
Yeah.
Essentially.
So today we launched a student assistance program where students can come in for half a day and get some guidance and some direction in catching up on their schoolwork that they're either the classes are failing, classes are behind, or struggling with online environment. So it gets them out of the house in a situation where there's an environment where there's less students, less people. So the risk of COVID stuff is way less, so parents can be okay with sending their kid here for half a day versus sending their kid to a school with 600 people. And it's really pretty straightforward. The goal is to teach them how to do school online as best they can, and then within 1-2 months they go back to being online, and then we stay in touch, but they continue to succeed because they know how to do it.
We're, again, just like we do with our traditional program, is we've designed this to be a gap fill. We're going to step into the gap, help you catch up, give you some social interaction, particularly is what our biggest concern is, and then go from there. So Uncle Jim, I want to give you, to go with what Rabbi is saying, my whole, and this is going to get deeply personal for a second. This literally just happened last week. I don't even believe I've told my wife this. My whole life, up to the time I was 25, my brother was my one constant support. I have a 4.5-year older brother. Was my constant support. Somewhere around 25, when I was about to have my second child, my brother started to become more and more distant. And it felt to me like it was something that happened overnight, but clearly it wasn't. This was something that built over time. Perceptions though, right? And my brother just disappeared from my life. Don't know why. To this day, I don't have a clue. Since that time, several of my closest family, well, all of my closest members, except for my mother and my father, have passed away. And at the subsequent funerals and whatnot, my brother has shown up to all of them but one. And at the second to last one, he said to my wife, and that's really the only time I've spoken to my brother since that time, was at these funerals. At the second to last one, he said to Veronica, take care of my brother. That was basically him saying, I'm never going to talk to you guys again, so, take care of my brother. And didn't say bye to me, hopped in his car and left. To say that I'm a bit angry would be an understatement about the whole thing. And Uncle Jim, to your point, I felt like I had done everything I could to build the relationship, to do what I could to. I never took from my brother outside of advice, I only ever tried to give relationally to him and whatnot. And it's bugged me for years, the question of why. Why don't you talk to me? Why did we go from having Thanksgiving and Easter dinner together and Christmas and all this kind of stuff and being normal brothers to you just don't want to talk to me? Like what? Like are you? And so my parents were butt heads growing up, and my brother was put into the father role. He was always made to babysit me as a kid. My mom would be gone for weeks at a time, and that all that kind of stuff. My dad would show up whenever he felt like it, and so I could see him being upset with my parents because to this day he hates my parents. I could see him being upset with my parents for basically stealing his childhood. Because since I was 6, I was in a situation where my brother was basically raising me, and my brother would have been 10, right, all the way through to my 20s. My brother was my father figure, so to speak, until I reconciled well with my father. Long story short, this past week, I thought, okay, enough's enough. I'm texting my brother. So I got a hold of somebody who I knew had my brother's cell phone number, and I texted him. And I said, do you have a second to talk? This is Neil. And he said, just responded, yep, what's up? That's all he said to me. And I'm not going to pull up my phone because then it'll just anger me. But he just said, if you're texting me to start shit, don't bother. I'll end it faster than you start it. And I'm like, I haven't talked to you in years. And immediately that's how you're going to open the conversation. So Jim, when you're talking about your dad and how you did all you could, I was reaching out to my brother with, hey, I miss you. And that was my next line. Dude, I haven't talked to you forever. I miss you. And I just want to understand why we don't talk. And he went on this long-winded, it would take me probably 20 minutes to read the text. It's hard to explain. He just basically called me every name in the book, told me to F off a dozen times. And I just said, hey, what's going on? And I asked the question, do you even know what I do for a living? And it was just this bizarre, to the point where Jim, this culminates in my point. At the end of it, I just said, you know what? The text isn't working. Can I call you Sunday? Because apparently he was at work. And that just exacerbated the problem, apparently. And he said, yeah, whatever, call me on Sunday, I'll be home. That was Thursday. Friday, Saturday went by, and somewhere along those 2 days, I wrestled with myself, and I said, I'm not calling him. I made the decision there and then that my 51-year-old brother is not going to get my phone call. That at 51, if he had not decided to grow his ass up, I'm okay. At 46 years old, I've decided that it's now my brother's turn. I'm not chasing anything. What I find amazing is that Rise Above has a similar principle. I will chase you so far as a student.
Yeah.
At some point, I'm going to let you each eat what you made. I'm going to let you make the decision and not question your decision anymore.
Yeah.
If all you're going to do when I reach out to you with a hug is punch me in the face, I'm going to step back at some point and say, when you're ready to have a conversation, it's now your turn. At 51 years old, it's now your turn. And I can tell you, Jim, and this is my point now, it has killed me this past week to make this decision. Growing up, my brother and I were everything. That's all we had was each other. Our parents were gone. Like we literally raised ourselves. So I guess the best way, my brother's now died twice on me. Right? 3 times, I guess, even. The idea of he was lost, just vanished off the face of the planet. He died when he told my wife, take care of my brother. And he died again last Thursday. I can tell you 100% my decision is correct. I don't think I'm mistaken in letting my brother go, in letting him live with his decision. It kills me to no end to make that decision and to let that happen. But that was the reality for me, that at some point I have to let the grown man act like a grown man and have his decisions. But yeah, I don't know if that helps at all or explains anything, but I got some chat to read here, so. Do you think that was a good decision, wrong decision, bad decision? What's your take on that? You won't offend me.
Well, I am kind of in the
You're
same
phenomenal
situation.
too, Juice. You're kind of in a similar situation?
Not quite like that. I have a twin brother. I'm 25, so it hasn't been happening for long, but ever since about a couple months before I got married and moved out, he just kind of stopped talking to me a lot. Mm-hmm. And ever since he got married, it's for the first year, he didn't talk to me at all except for when we were at a funeral for my grandma. And we had a great relationship. And my family is very open, accepting, loving. Like there's no barrier, I guess, for him to come talk to me or whatever. And so I totally get that. Not close, not all the way, but I don't know, because right now, him and his wife are going to come over Friday to Jackson. And this
first time. This past Friday or this coming
Friday? First time they'll see our house for the 2 times we've lived in it, or 2 years we've lived in it.
2, yeah.
Yeah. And yeah, I don't know. I'm mostly sure they're going to flake out because that's what they always do. But right now I'm also at the point of deciding what do I do long term? Do I keep extending myself and getting hurt, or do I wait?
Yeah. So here's a question for you. Is your brother older or younger than you? Twin brothers, so they're the same age. Duh. Well, still, he's got to be one's older than the other.
Yeah, I'm older.
By 3 seconds. For me, for years, I rationalized the behavior. And I don't know if this is a similar thing for what we're talking about for you or not, but I rationalized my brother's behavior because I thought to myself, was it because he was my dad growing up? He was always the big brother who, I'm going to swoop in and I'm going to save my little brother, whether it's a fight in the front yard with the neighbor's kid, which there was a lot of those, like little punching fights in the front yard. Or, hey, you're buying your first house. I can walk you through how to buy your house, whatever the case is. I think there was a point where I became independent. I grew up. Mm-hmm. And I didn't need to call my dad every 5 minutes to get an answer to something. And I think by the time I had my second kid, I think something clicked. I almost, and I keep saying I think because I literally don't know. I perceive that, so I just changed the word there. Yeah. I perceive that he thinks I abandoned him. All that stuff I did for him, and he just threw me away like he didn't need me anymore. I'll show him, you're just like everybody else, You get what you want and then you leave. That's literally all I can think, besides the fact that I get along with, that I intentionally went out of my way to repair my relationship with my parents, much like I tried to do with him just now. I went out of my way, I sacrificed, I put myself out there, risking wounding, to say, Mom, Dad, I want to have parents, Those worked, and I think that might have pissed him off too, to some extent, where he was like, wait, think you're better than me because whatever the case is. I don't know whether he thinks I should be just as much as a goofball to my parents as he is. Yeah, I don't know if that's part of it. Is your brother successful in any?
Yeah, they're fine.
He's not here to defend himself, so I don't. Yeah,
they're fine. It's like, it's also I don't know the reason, why they kind of don't talk. There was some strife like with them and my parents, but it wasn't, yeah. It's just been it's like he's trying to be independent with his family, with him and his wife.
Sure.
And he's taking it to the extreme.
I can see that.
Yeah.
I'm not saying that's correct, but I could definitely understand that.
Yeah, and
especially if you guys had a really strong relationship with your parents, where
very strong.
Where you're always, parents are very involved with your relationships, and suddenly you get a taste of. I mean, that's not uncommon. I wouldn't think that would be uncommon at all, right?
Yeah. And I think the cutting out that you mentioned.
I want to go back. Let's read some chat together.
TX. The cutting out. Is what I'm struggling with. Like, I don't want to keep reaching out and not getting anything back from him. Like, that sucks. It just hurts. But also I want to try and repair it, And so, and my parents are in the same boat, Yeah. And yeah, it's kind of the same thing. Yes, be patient, persistent, always willing to be there when they do take this step to reach out again. Yeah.
So, Juicy, why do you think you went the other way, Juice? Was that something you did intentionally, or just that it happened? But see, and that's the other thing too. I question whether it was events in my brother's personal life, because right around that same time, him and his wife got divorced. So I almost questioned, was he embarrassed by the divorce? That type of thing, that he's repeating the sins of our family's past.
For once, is he less put together than you?
Yeah. Yeah, all that stuff goes through my mind. And again, I don't want to assume anything.
Yeah. It's hard
my
not
brother.
knowing.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know.
And that's literally all I want. That's all I asked my brother is, just tell me what happened. What did I do?
Yeah, Jim doesn't know why. Like, we all just don't know. And that's like one of the hardest part is like when someone's struggling near us, when someone disconnects and we don't know why. we want to try and rationalize it as much as we can. And that's totally human to do.
Mm-hmm.
That's 100% human to do.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. To be fair, no one has any idea what they're doing. I mean, I pretend to know what I'm doing.
Yeah.
Yeah, but here's my question to that, though, Rabbi, is, and because I agree with you to some extent, but when you've had distance for 25 years, what then is the excuse, right? No problem, Jim. Yeah, Rabbi, go ahead, offer a thought. I mean, that's why we have the stream, man. As long as it's not offensive like everything else, right? It's tough. Because that's the thing, TX, for me. I'm not afraid of being burned, but I'm a once bitten, twice shy guy. You know?
Because it sucks.
It's that, what's the phrase, you know? I make the mistake. I let you get away with it once. Shame on me. I let you get away with, you know, that shame on you, shame on me thing, you know? That's what I feel like. If I keep letting him sucker punch me when I'm reaching out being nice, like at what point am I just a sucker? Right?
Yeah.
At some point I've got to say, you know what? I'm smarter than this. You know? Why am I going to let him impact cuz I was grumpy with my wife all weekend. And I couldn't bring myself to tell her, hey, I had this conversation with my brother, blah, blah, blah. You know, obviously I have to today now. Because now my staff all know. But you know what I'm saying to you, though? You struggle with relationships, and then when you stepped out and repair your relationships, you choose your parents first, not him. Yeah, and I had a good, outside of her brother for a season, I had a really good relationship even with Veronica's family too, for the most part. His initial parental trauma was never dealt with, so. Yeah, but there's so many other factors in that as well. But I do agree that very much is a specific catalyst to everything. 100%, Rabbi, 100%. That's a catalyst for so much of this conversation around that whole thing, right? But I guess for me, I know Jim's not here; he's in a meeting right now. But I think that's the other part of this is that I think Jim needs to be okay with the realization that he did everything he could, that he did not leave any, as my old coach would say, never leave anything on the field. I don't think he left anything on the field.
But even if, let's just say he did try his very best, all of our human brains will always continue to think that they could have done more.
Yeah.
Right? There's no way to ever fully know, and so I don't know if that's the right question to be asking. Did I do everything? I think the right question to be asking is, was I always able to help when they chose?
Mm-hmm.
Did I ever deny them when they tried to open the door?
Yeah.
In a meaningful way, not like, oh, I need money, please help me, whatever, like in a meaningful way. Because then you could ask that question about everybody. What about the student that died last summer?
Yeah.
For us, what about all these things,
Yeah.
And you can't ask that. I would go insane if I kept asking that. But
oh, that's okay. I understand, Juicy. Yep, that makes sense. So I can't get into it a whole lot because she's not here, but my wife had a similar experience with her mother when her mother passed away and her sisters. My wife has a large family. She has 6 brothers and sisters. And had a very, very similar experience because although everybody lived in Canada minutes away from my mother-in-law, Veronica was the one that left here, the U.S., to go home for months away from her family here to go care for her mother.
Yeah.
It's like, why is, I get it. Veronica and I had to force her to go, you know, because she felt guilty for leaving. I'm like, no, it's your mother. Freaking go. Like, why would you ever question that? And it for a season, thankfully it passed, but for a season, it created some animosity between the sisters. But that's a great way of saying it, Rabbi. Loss is the mistress of doubt and second guessing. And one of your sisters said she would care for my mom, so my mom moved in town, so she dropped everything for her friends. But doesn't help my mom. That's crazy.
Just like what you were describing?
Yeah.
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 Yeah. I am of the mind where, at least this is just my stance on this kind of topic, I would rather be hurt myself and always have an open door versus protecting myself and then, you know, whatever.
Yeah.
However, I know that's not always right. That's just my default. And I default that too much because I'm a helper. I don't care if somebody runs over me if it helps them.
Yeah.
You know, like that's just my.
But it can be an emotional drain, though.
Oh,
you can only do that so long.
Totally.
Yeah.
And like for instance, with my brother, I play D&D with him a lot, a ton, and I'm in a group right now with all of our friends, you know, and my dad and like this this great family friend group, you know, guys that stood up at my wedding, guys that stood up at his wedding.
Yeah.
And he doesn't want to, like, he did play with us, but then he stopped coming. And I want to ask him every time before we play, hey, you want to play again? But I've stopped, you know, because he's just not going to. And that hurts. But also, if he asked me, I would say, yes, of course.
Yeah, in an instant.
In an instant, you know?
And that's the same thing with my brother. If my brother called me tomorrow and said, hey, you know, I'm going to be in town. Can I stop by your place and can we go for dinner? I'm like, I would not hesitate to say, yeah, absolutely. Get your butt in here.
Yeah.
Right? And TX, thank you for finding a way to work in a deer hunting reference. You're a rock star just for that very reason. Because you're right. I do see deer on the camera all the time, but at the end of the day, you have to hope it will be there. And the reality is, you don't just have to hope you have to be there. You have to go out and be there yourself.
Yeah.
So the deer are going to come by, right? You got to be there as well. And you have to have done the prep work to ensure that whatever you're doing being there isn't going to be a hindrance to them being there also.
Yeah.
You know, from a deer hunting standpoint, you got to make sure all the scent control is in place. You're masking your how you look and everything else, and that you're not doing anything to offend the deer.
Yeah.
That's going to stop them. So familial wise, it'd be the same thing. Like, you know, when you're agreeing to go out for dinner with somebody, am I going to say or do anything that's going to be a trigger or an interruption to them being present?
Yeah.
So, you know, God willing, if the opportunity ever comes up to have that. And yes, you're right, TX, I did like that one. A bajillion % yes, I am almost always willing to put myself in a position of vulnerability first to protect myself and having the potential to feel like I could have just done more or should have tried harder. You know, and I think for the most part, I'd say the vast majority of our folks here do that. And I think that to an extent, we all have to continue to work on it. But one of the things that I know we also don't do in the context of Rise Above is take it personal.
Oh, yeah.
Because it would be, I mean, when we're talking about our families, of course you're taking it personal because it's your family.
Yeah.
The context of Rise Above, the acting out that we see is not directed at us. It's a residual from something else. We're just getting the after effect.
Yeah.
To an argument or to some abuse or trauma that's happened before us.
Mm-hmm.
And so what we say can be a trigger. It can just be
the person that's there when I'm upset. Yeah, anything.
Yeah, anything.
And the whole thing with family and struggling relationships is like so many people make excuses just because, oh, it's my family. I have to be connected to this toxic person. I have to sacrifice. And to some extent, yeah, they're your family, but also I don't want to make excuses for somebody when I wouldn't be with them if they're not my family.
Yeah.
Like if the only thing holding you together is that you're family, maybe there's a better way to go about the relationship. And that just sucks.
Yeah.
Because it's your family. And like we all want that close, connected group system people, right? And it's hard. I don't have an answer for it. But
and so, Rabbi, you actually took the words right out of my mouth. I mean, that's one of the things. So I struggle with, and again, this comes back to my brother. I struggle with a very premise, Rabbi, that family is bound to one another. That we have to be this unit that's inseparable. I think there is an opportunity that there is a time when, sorry, you're just not a part of this anymore.
Yeah.
Or I'm not a part of this anymore. Again, whether it's because of abuse of some form or neglect or whatever that thing is, I absolutely agree with that. And I think that's the point I've reached finally.
Yeah.
Where I'm just like, yeah, you're just not a part of my life anymore. And I'm not saying it's easy or it's okay. In my mind, there's just a reality that I've come to where I'm not bound to you anymore. Yeah. I'm released. But and I will say this: forgiveness is a big part of this. That's a hard word. And Juicy, I'm going to come back to your comment here in a second. That has for me been the biggest emotional savior to me, has been my willingness and my ability to finally get to a place where I can forgive all of the people in my life that have hurt me or hurt others around me.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was a big struggle for me for years. For years. And it gets back to the adage of forgiveness is not for them, it's for you. Absolutely. It was, my unforgiveness was killing me. Mm-hmm. So, Juicy, what you're saying, my mom got into an argument with sister. Push. Oh, wow. But I don't say, they don't even realize that I quit talking to them, but they don't make it either. So it's reciprocal to some degree. Juicy, have you ever tried to reach back out? Like, how long has it been? You said 2 years? True, I always say, I always love my family, but I don't have to like them. Yeah, I agree with what you're saying, Juice, 100%.
This whole family topic also comes in with our students. They'll say like, oh, that's my cousin or my uncle, and there's no blood relationship
at all.
They have the language of family, what they call people, has totally changed based on who is close to them. And that also is true with like gangs.
Yeah,
and stuff.
And Uncle Jim, that's exactly what you're saying. What Will is saying right now.
Yeah.
So it's very common. So I talked about my Portuguese family. It's very common when people move from Portugal to Canada, or some immigrated through New York. That like my original family name is DeSantos Martino. So my grandfather's name was DeSantos. My grandmother's name was Martino. And so when they immigrated from Portugal, they moved those names to, like, my dad has those as middle names now. So it's Jose Manuel Martino DeSantos Fernandez. So my dad's original name was Jose Manuel Dos Santos. When they moved over, to save everyone's name, they put him into his middle name. Anyways, long story short, so the Fernandez was not some arbitrary name they just pulled out of the air. We actually have people from the same village of my grandparents that moved from Portugal, Santa Vitória in Portugal, to Canada, that when they moved, they adopted the name Fernandez. And the reason why we landed on Fernandez as a family was because we knew them.
Yeah.
And so I have several uncles and other Fernandezes that are not blood related at all.
Yeah.
Just all of our grandparents, when they immigrated back in the 40s and 50s, really, came over, and the first one picked Fernandez. And what it was is the men came first, found jobs, and they all just, we're Fernandez now.
Yeah.
We came together, so that's who we are.
Yeah.
And so, hey, Louis, what's going on? Thanks for joining us, buddy. You missed a good part of a chat here. If Risk ever wants to do a special episode on family, I would be happy. Yeah. Rabbi, I'm telling you, there's an open invitation to do those types of chat, and I would bring. So we can have 3 in the studio now, which is awesome. I love the fact that we added a 3rd mic and camera, so we can totally do a big 4-way conversation on this stuff. I'd love to bring Morg Meme into this conversation as well at some point. I've talked to them a handful of times, but no change. And you can't. Yeah. We completely get that.
Yeah. 100%.
Crashing, what's going on, man? Everyone's popping in. Louis, Crash, thanks for joining us, bud. They've just become so fake. Yeah. And that's we see that here a lot too. I call it the mask of hurt. Oh yeah. This idea of I'm so angry at you, I'm so hurt by you, I'm so blah blah, whatever the thing is, but I don't know how to deal with it, so I'm just gonna put on this fakeness.
Yeah.
Of showing up and doing what I'm just gonna go through the motions because it's what I'm supposed to do, right? Do you see that with our students as well?
Oh yeah, the first 2 weeks, and then it breaks. Usually at that time where they have that crisis moment or whatever, they have that like, I'm gonna put my best foot forward, or I'm gonna not try, because I don't want to show my best, show who I am.
Yep.
But yeah. Yep. Totally. 100%.
Just gotta do a thing. Give me a second. Everything is awesome. I think for years I've always, because my personality is I'm a negotiator, but I'm totally about, I'm the peacemaker. I grew up wanting to be a police officer, which in my mind was a superhero, somebody who went into a dangerous situation, swooped in, solved whatever the issue was, and basically negotiated the surrender of the bad guy.
Yeah.
And then rescued the damsel in distress. And what I realized is that I just saw a police officer as the avenue to play that out.
Yeah.
I didn't realize that there were a million opportunities in the world to do that type of thing.
Yeah.
Because honestly, it's literally the whole premise of Rise Above. That we as an organization, every day, all day, work through those conversations and those relationships with students.
100%.
All we do is diffuse bombs.
Oh yeah.
All day long. And then teach kids how to do it themselves tomorrow.
Yeah.
Wash, rinse, repeat.
Yeah. They should.
No problem, Louis.
I should apply to be in a bomb squad or something, because
nerves of steel.
Although there have been plenty of times where I've cut the wrong wire for sure. Oh my gosh.
That's a great analogy.
Think of those. So just funny. Like a knight in shining armor. Yeah, 100%. That's
not what the cops around there do, Crash. I'm sorry to hear, buddy. Like a knight in shining armor, Juice. Yeah, and I don't know whether it was like this glorification thing that I was aiming for, whether it was something where because I felt a lot as a kid very insignificant, and like I wasn't a big part of the answer. I felt very much, because I was a Rise Above kid growing up without a Rise Above.
Yeah.
I felt like I was the cause of everyone's problems growing up, versus the opposite of that, someone who helped people out of their problems.
Have you taken the Enneagram? Mm-mm. Okay.
No, Veronica told me about when you guys did it, but I haven't done it yet.
Yeah.
Would we want to do it on stream? Could we do it on stream? Not right this instant, but
do it on stream
at some point.
The one I have for a student, if they want to take it, is like 200 questions. So it's kind of a lot of questions, but
maybe I could do it and then we could analyze it on stream.
It's one of the most in-depth ones in terms of finding out your motivation. And
so describe it. Is it free? Is it something you can get anywhere?
There is a free one, but if you want to do it, I would for sure do the one you pay like $15 for, whatever.
The paid one.
Because it goes a lot more in depth. But pretty much.
So describe it. If people wanted to find it and do it, how would they do it?
So it's called the Enneagram. I'm not super knowledgeable about it, but there's pretty much these different numbers of. It's based on motivation. So I think it's 1 through 9 or 1 through 11 or something like that.
ENN?
Yeah.
Enneagram?
Yep. Enneagram. Yep. And it's like a personality type thing, but it more deals with motivation. My motivation is helper. And so you're primarily one, and then there's like, it's called wings, right? And you can like act in certain ways based on your wings, whether you're a healthy version of yourself or an unhealthy version, you act like different.
I'm going to put some stuff in chat for you guys to click on.
So I'm a helper. So and it's not 100% like every personality test. It doesn't tell you who you are. It tells you a little bit about who you might be, right?
Yeah.
That's all personality tests.
So the reformer, a rational, idealistic type, principled, purposeful, self-controlled, and a perfectionist.
Yeah.
The helper, the caring, interpersonal type, demonstrative, generous, people-pleasing, and possessive.
See, that's the negative. There's a positive and negative.
Yeah. So the other one, the performer, was the perfectionist part, was the negative.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
The achiever, my whole life is about annoying people, Crash. The achiever, the success-oriented, pragmatic type, adaptive, excelling, driven, and image-conscious.
Yep.
No, I've not seen these before, and I'm...
Yeah, they're great because it really... What it's great at is pointing things out that might be in your life for you to ask questions about. Oh, wow. Am I possessive? After looking at that, I realized, I want to help people so bad that my need to be the helper is possessive over them. Whether it's a significant like other relationship, whether it's my brother, whether it's whenever I become a dad, that's going to be there,
I think that was a huge stumbling block for my brothers when I had kids.
Yeah, because he wanted him to be there for you.
Yeah.
And now you were there for somebody else. And,
Yeah.
It totally
100%.
changed. So the Enneagram, it helps you ask amazing questions about yourself.
I'm going to read all of these. So there's 9 total. Number 5 is the investigator, the intense cerebral type. They're perceptive, innovative, secretive, and isolated. The loyalist, the committed, security-oriented type. They're engaging, they're responsible, but anxious and suspicious. Interesting. The enthusiast. This is busy, fun-loving type of person. Spontaneous, versatile, distractible, and scattered. I don't know if that's me or not. See, I struggle with the word spontaneous because I'm a homebody, but yet I think I'm spontaneous in the sense of I will suddenly like be a welder, and I'll go 1,000% into being a welder, and then next year I'll start a pipe fitting program, and I'll just be 1,000% into pipe fitting, or I'm just throwing stuff out there. But you see what I'm saying to you?
Yeah. So it might be a wing, right? Where like you're primarily something, but you also act out in this certain way.
Yeah.
And that can be a healthy thing or an unhealthy thing based on.
Yeah, I'd love to do this with you guys online.
Yeah,
I wish there was a way. Let's see if we can find a way. Next stream, let's see if there's a way we can do this.
Oh, I'm sure there's a way.
The challenger, number 8, is the powerful, dominating type. This could be me. Self-confident, decisive, willful, but I'm Yeah. This might be me.
Will. I was gonna say, just keep reading.
This might be me. That's so funny. The peacemaker is easygoing, efficating type, perceptive, reassuring, agreeable, and complacent. Oh boy!
And the great thing about this is that you can read them all and still ask questions about who you are, right? like, oh, maybe I'm like a helper.
That's funny,
primarily.
Crash.
But then I look at something else. I'm like, oh, I can do that too.
Yeah.
What's a way that I can?
Yeah.
But I can't remember how we got talking about this.
That's so funny. The powerful, dominating type, self-confident, decisive, willful, and I like that, willful and confrontational. Yeah, that's me. But I will say this, and I think I said it this morning, because something happened on Saturday at my son's soccer game.
That's what I was thinking about, the confrontational.
I'm not afraid of confrontation. So I'm going to tell the story. So you guys, here's a story. I wasn't going to tell the story, but I'll tell the story. My son makes state finals. They win the game. Start of the second half, probably about halfway through the second half. You can't imagine me being confrontational. I bring the guns to every gunfight. Let me tell you that right now.
And the tank.
My wife and I intentionally sit, and this is that we're in a school in Michigan that is in a very affluent neighborhood. So it's like Michigan State caliber arena, like a stadium. It's massive. And my wife and I intentionally sit at the very back of the stadium in the bleachers. And there's probably 1,000 fans there watching the game. We're in the far back corner. And because of COVID regulations, they have every other seat taped off, so you can't sit every row. So it's pretty spaced out. But there's a walkway at the back that's enough to fit probably 2 or 3 people wide. And there's some dads standing up back there, and they're cheering and whatnot. But we're in the back corner, again, because we're antisocial and because of COVID. Joke in there somewhere. After the second half, one of the dads sees fit, and he's clearly not sitting in our area. He's sitting in the middle of the stadium. Mm-hmm. Decides to come 150, 200 feet down our way. Stand, literally directly behind. If he had buckled his knees, his knees would hit the back of my head. Stand directly behind Veronica and I, and is screaming down on the field at the top of his lungs, like thinking the kids can hear him screaming, as he's giving directions about how to play the game because he's an expert in the game.
Mm-hmm. Naturally.
Yeah. And not wanting to cause conflict, I stand up after 5 minutes of it, and I walk off to the side because I'm like, I don't want a headache. It's a simple fact. I just don't want a guy screaming behind me for the next 35 minutes of the half. So I stand off the side, and I thought he kind of got a hint, right, that I was not happy with him screaming directly behind me, and he walked away. And so I went and sat back down in my seat, and about 5 minutes later, he came back again and stood right behind us and started screaming again. And I'm going to paraphrase what I said to you earlier. And at some point, I said, okay, I've got to say something. And I guess this could be the willful confrontation part on my end. But I politely turned, and probably with a bit of sternness in my voice, I'm sure.
Yeah.
I said, excuse me, sir, could you please not yell directly behind us? To which he responded, you do realize you're at a soccer game, right? And I said, yes, but I also don't want to drive home with a migraine for an hour. I said, could you not scream at the players from directly behind us, please? And he started to walk away, but as he walked away, he continued to educate me on what I should and should not know. I didn't have a taser. As he walked away, I tried not to engage. I turned my head away and I looked back at the field, but he kept going, and it was at that point that he threw some rather unsavory names at me, and something clicked in my mind that, okay, time to ask further questions. So I stood up and I went over and I said, do you know that I'm on the same team as you? That I am a parent of the same school that you're talking to. Like, I'm not the other team. Like, what are you yelling at? You know, I'm being nice. And I don't remember what he said, but he wasn't polite to me. To which I responded, I don't know who you're yelling at, but I'm not that guy. You don't need to yell at me because and I kept saying, I'm not that guy. And I'm walking away because I don't want to escalate any further I want to be transparent. 20 years ago, I would not have even said that many words. I would have resolved the issue a traditional way. But I'm not that guy. I have changed, honestly, because of my faith, because I have a belief now that stops me from going that direction. So I walked away. And as I was walking away, he kept going at me. And I just turned to him. I said, buddy, I'm not the guy you're trying to attack. You need to stop. I'm not. I said, it's clear that you are that guy, but I am not. So just stop. And he did, but he wouldn't stop, to the point where I actually had sitting down and he was still jabbing, and I actually had to get up and leave the stadium. Because I was at the point emotionally where I would have willfully intervened. Best way I can say it. My son goes on to win the game. My son's team goes on to win the game. 22 seconds left in the game. They score the winning goal. Hooray. I said, okay, it's time to go back to my seat, sit with my wife, who is now sitting by herself. And when I come back, and this is kind of, I don't know if this is pertinent to the conversation or not, but when I come back, Veronica had already texted me, said he came back and apologized to me, whatever the case is. But the tragedy in that is he's already shown his true colors, is my viewpoint. I'm over it, whatever. My kid won the game. I'm excited for him. But when he comes back from behind, which is dangerous unto itself because I'm very aware of people coming up from behind me and grabbing me, he not only comes up from behind, but he comes up behind and grabs my bicep and my neck. Now, again, I don't know. I can count on one hand in my life people that have done that to me. And not invoked a response. But he came up and forcefully grabbed my bicep and my trap and kind of scared me. Not scared me, but to kind of get me and, I just want you to know. And I'm like, kind of like, okay, what are you doing? And I didn't even want to turn. And he said, I just want to apologize, let you know. And I'm like, dude, you're good. Just leave me alone. You're good. Go. And he gets his face right in beside my face. And I'm like, dude, what are you doing? I said, let me go. And so you talk about being confrontational. I am not confrontational. But what I also am not is somebody who will willfully allow somebody to walk all over me. So there's a fine line for me of being willing to go over the deep end and being willing to, and I think that's important.
Yeah.
In the context of who we are as an organization at Rise Above. Because very often our students are beat up.
Yeah.
Incorrectly. And we need people, and I'm happy to be that person, who is willing to step into that space and willfully be confrontational to a parent or to a student and say, no, we're done. You need to absolutely stop this crap right now. And to allow the student to know that I am strong enough, not just physically, but spiritually, emotionally, and mentally, to stand up for you. And that I'm not going to be a fearful person in the midst of this. That I'm going to slay the dragon for you. Here's the best way I can say it. There's a D&D reference for you. Maybe use that somewhere. It's free. Go ahead. So many times I have to explain to parents that their kids are not going to be an athlete and things aren't that serious. It's crazy, and I get it. State finals. It's a big game.
Yeah.
I don't want to diminish the importance of the game, but I guess my point is, even in the most, I don't care if this was the Super Bowl. We're going for the same team. Our sons are on the field.
Yeah.
And I don't even know that this guy, his son, was on the field. I think he was just somebody else that was there wearing an LCS shirt.
Yeah.
I've had guys try to do that, to be domineering and then apologetic, and it ended up very much be that And that's what it was. It was him apologizing, but at the same time trying to be the dominant. That's that whole grab.
I'm coming to apologize.
Yeah, that's the whole. I'm in control of the situation. Yeah, no problem. Welcome back. Work sucks. Actually, it doesn't. It's kind of awesome. Won't throw the first punch, but going to finish the fight. Not necessarily literally. Yeah, no, I understand what you're saying. And so for me, Juice, I am very much. I'm not. I'm a just war apologist is the best way I can explain it. I'm not a pacifist by any stretch of imagination. Not to take away anything from anybody who is a pacifist. I know many who are, and I've argued all of them, well, most of them. And again, I'm not saying one is right or wrong.
Toe pocket taser. Exactly.
But the reality is, I think there is a time for war and a time for peace, and we should always seek after peace first, including with our families and friends, and for people who clearly don't know who we are. But I haven't thrown a punch in forever because my diplomatic ability and my self-control has helped me to do that. I just saw pictures of, and you just go to holy cow, oh, you're a child. Yeah, that's right. In control, toe pocket taser. You're a total war type. So does everyone know what just war is? Let me ask that question. So talk about courage. This is the nth degree of courage. Oh, tell her we said happy birthday, Rabbi.
I am someone who will never defend myself if it's just me. Right? If it's against me, if it's hurting me, whatever, I am not going to do anything. But if it's to anybody else and I have the ability to stop it and the means to, I will.
Yeah.
Because then it becomes like a justice thing. And
that's awesome, Crash.
I'm trying to I base this off of Jesus' life.
Yeah.
He didn't care what happened to him.
Mm-hmm.
But yet he still cared about what happened to others. And so, yeah, like I always run the idea, what if somebody came into my house? Mm-hmm. And if I was home alone,
yeah,
I don't know what I would do.
So if
my wife was there, I know exactly what I would do.
So this is the just war. So Crash, I'd be interested then to get your perspective. And Juicy, maybe you'll learn something. This will be fun. Just war from a theological perspective. I'll start there because that's where my understanding of just war came from. So just as an FYI, most Western worlds ascribe to some form of just war methodology, right? Just war is this idea of, in a nutshell, I will do as much as needed to get you to a point of righteous understanding to prevent you from warmongering any further. So if I have to come up and I have to sternly wave my finger at you and that gets you to stop, that's just war. That's just enough war to get you to do, and I'm justified in doing it because you are morally doing something incorruptible. Up to the point of I am justified in slapping you. I am to get your attention. I am justified in punching you or shooting you or taking your life or taking possession of your land in order to, but again, the idea is corrective. It's not domination, it's corrective in nature. And crashing, add to this, please. Now, a just war theology, so take your idea of you talked about your Christian faith and this idea of Jesus. So this is where my mind exploded a little bit because the Bible talks about this idea, and Jesus says, someone slaps you, turn the cheek, let them slap the other, give them your tunic, blah, 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 all that kind of stuff, right? People construe that to be, oh, that's pacifism. I'm not to respond. I take that a step further and say you're misinterpreting the text, because what Jesus is saying in that moment is he's talking about persecution for your faith. He's not talking about somebody who doesn't know you, who's robbing you on the street, or in your case, breaking into your house and coming to rape your wife. He's talking about somebody coming up to you and saying, "You stupid Christian, I'm going to punch you in the face because you're a Christian or because you're a Muslim or whatever the thing is." Jesus says we are to be persecuted for our faith. Many will suffer. You will suffer because of who you are in me. And that's where I believe we are to be passive. We are to go to the flame, to the lions, as it were. And that if somebody comes and kills me because I am a believer, I will happily go to the sword. Where I refuse to go to the sword is when some guy walks into my house and decides to tyrannize my family because I have gold in my basement. I have some form of treasure that he or she wants. To that, I am to defend to the nth degree. And this is where I clarify that. So scripturally, I start in one spot. I always start here because it's the easiest reference point, and then I can go theologically from there a million different ways. But start here. And most people can identify this passage, the Garden of Gethsemane, when Jesus is arrested and ultimately led to his trial. And again, not assuming all of you are Christians or that you know your theology or your Bible, but Will and I definitely do. Jesus is in the garden. He's praying. He asks his disciples to pray with him. They don't. They fall asleep. Our good friend goes and betrays Jesus, right? Judas goes and sells the whereabouts of Jesus for some silver to the Pharisees. The Pharisees, with their soldiers, come to arrest Jesus in the garden. What happens when they come to arrest Jesus? What does Peter do?
Pulls out a sword and chops the guy's ears off.
So what is a disciple of Jesus doing with a sword? Because he wasn't cutting his evening steak with it.
Right.
So this is a guy that is a known follower of Jesus, very close to him, his inner circle. Jesus has to know that this is a sword-carrying, right, or in our day and age, a gun-carrying follower who is carrying a weapon of war with him as he goes. Why would a close disciple who's been traveling with him for 2 years be carrying a sword? And then why would he feel free when Jesus is attacked to wield it to a point where he literally was obviously trying to chop a guy's head off?
Yeah.
The realization is that he believes he is justified in defending Jesus from persecution. What Jesus does is then stops him and says, don't. You don't know the will of the Father. In other words, I'm being persecuted for my belief. Let them arrest me. Let them take me. Put away your sword. And then Jesus heals the guy's ear.
Yeah. I want to look up the word sword because I want to see what it is.
Well, it's not going to translate to butter knife. I can assure you of that.
Yeah, I know. I want to know.
It's a one-handed Roman sword he was carrying. Is what most people assume because I wrote several papers on it in university. I'm going to go back. While you look that up, I'm going to read.
Yeah, my thought on that is it doesn't just provoke a non-action. He provokes an opposite reaction, action, right? It's not just if someone slaps me, I'm not going to do anything to them.
Yes, TX.
It's they slap me and I give them another opportunity to. And why? Right? Why? That's so weird. Why? So I think about why. And I think to myself, what you were talking about earlier with getting them to stop, whatever it takes for them to stop. Wouldn't that make somebody stop?
Well, because in that particular case, so you can look at it from a non-spiritual standpoint, you can look at it from a contextual standpoint.
Right.
If I allow someone to slap me, why are they slapping me in the first place? It's a power thing. I'm going to assert myself on you. Wham! Okay, well, whatever. Here you go. Slap the other side. Okay, yeah, I'm going to show you who's boss. Wham! Okay, whatever. Here's the other side. Okay, wait a second. Okay, yeah, I'm still in control. Here, wham! Okay, yeah, here's the other side. At some point, you're going to realize, as a person that's smacking the other dude, is if you're smart and rational, you're going to say, wait a second, who's actually in control here?
Yeah.
Right? Am I truly the one that is in authority? Because really, I don't seem to be the decision maker in this situation.
Yeah. It's the part of the movie where the protagonist is getting beat up by the guy and he chooses not to fight back.
Yeah. And you usurp control in that situation in some way. But again, spiritually, what is being said, right? Crashing involves just cause, concept of justice and virtue. That's what I was talking about earlier. That's moral law. So there's a whole other conversation we can have. Moral law. Where does moral law come from? Where does it? Is it inherent? Is it something we learn? The right proportionality, the correct intentions, etc. It's kind of how the Geneva Convention. Oh, that Geneva Convention. Oh, that gives me shivers from when I was in the military, learning all that. They were so tiny. I had to bring them. Oh, that's funny. So Jesus turns to the cheek, the robe taser, the robe taser. Okay, that was the last one, I promise. That's funny. Gladys is an amazing look weapon. Okay, lunch is ready. Yeah, take it easy, Rabbi. Have a good one. Thanks, man. Appreciate it. I've got sucker punched at a bar ages ago, but it was so ineffective. I was like, never mind.
That's funny.
I got this. Yeah, so for me, scripturally, when you look at when we talk about fighting and not fighting, there's a delineating factor. One clearly talks about taking action in justification of your faith and not taking action in justification of your faith. Throughout Scripture, the disciples talk to soldiers, and they never tell soldiers to not be soldiers.
Yeah, they abandon they never say, abandon your post, never fight, never, yeah.
All they say is don't cheat people.
Yeah.
When you go be happy with your wages, they say, at one point, right?
Yep.
Tax collectors, they don't say stop being a tax collector. They say collect your taxes fairly.
Do your job well.
Don't take more than you're supposed to.
Yeah.
They never say don't be a soldier. They say walk a mile in their shoes, which is does anyone know where the term walk a mile in their shoes comes from? Do you know where that comes from?
Mm-hmm.
Anyone know? Raise your hand. Back in 2012, Lamas got into a scuffle with a driver who cut him off and then attacked him. The guy turned out to have how arresting I thought it would be. Goes, got nothing on this one? The cops arrived and Lamas was just holding him face down. That's so awesome. So Lamas is a UFC fighter.
Okay.
Lorenzo Lamas, crashing trains with him. Yeah, Crash, you own the gym or you work at the gym or I think you own the gym or something.
Okay.
Where this UFC fighter, former belt title holder.
Right.
Crashing was nice enough to get me an autographed.
Yeah, I saw that.
Yeah. That's who we're talking about. So the term walk a mile on their shoes is actually a Roman soldier terminology, is where it comes from. Back in Roman times when soldiers would be marching cross country, they were allowed, when they came across towns and villages, to hand their pack off to a citizen of that town. But they were not allowed to force the person in that town to walk more than a mile carrying their pack.
Yeah.
Does that make you understand what I'm saying to you? So they could conscript a local to carry the burden of their war for 1 mile.
They would walk out, and then the person who was carrying the pack would walk back to town, and yeah.
Yes. Yep. So that's where that term walk a mile in their shoes comes from. This idea of helping somebody bear the load that they're going through, right? Which is obviously not a light load.
Yeah. The word is
he owns it. You manage it. Gotcha.
Most certainly mostly used for terms of war, fighting, defense.
What are we talking about?
The word sword used in that passage there. So it's
definitely not a butter knife.
Yeah, it's definitely not a butter knife.
It's definitely not a tool he used to cut up his baked potato earlier in the day.
Most often it's used saying, will you come with staves and swords or put to the sword or
yes. It's definitely an instrument of war.
Yeah, and it might not even been a sword. It's just the term is like the act as well, war, fighting. Yeah, so it's even more clear than just saying the word knife. So,
gotcha. Because he could have had a sword that he was using for cutting his steak up, because that's all he had available. Yeah. But then he used it in a function that was clearly.
Or it could have been a staff, and he bashed the guy's ear off, or smashed it.
True enough. True enough. I mean, I've seen getting back to Lamas. I'm sure he could punch a guy hard enough to. It's crazy what those guys can do.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think that's a stream.
Yeah.
I think that, I mean, I will say this. It never ceases to amaze me the depth that you all can take this conversation. Will, you added a lot to this conversation today. Thank you for your vulnerability as well. I absolutely love this chat. I love the willingness to take deep dives into personal conversations and to work through stuff that not only is intimate but difficult.
Mm-hmm.
I will say that it's helped me tremendously over it's almost 2 bloody years we've been doing this. It just blows my mind that it's been that long. To see the kind of the relationships grow, the willingness to conversate and to participate, and I look forward to continuing that. I think what I want to do next stream is come back and do this Enneagram thing. I'll have done it. Yeah, I'll have done it by Enneagram. Yeah, that's what it is. I'll have done it by that point, and then we'll talk through my answers and kind of my response. I'm not sure where we'll arrive, Challenger, but I would encourage all of you to do the same if you've got the time to or the financial resources to do this, or see if we can find one that is free. Let's see if we can do one together, and come together and kind of analyze together. I think that'd be a lot of fun. Any last words before we say goodbye today?
Nope. If you guys have any questions for me, you can always ask Neil. And
throw it into Discord. You can DM me. Yeah. You can throw it in general chat, whatever the case is. Discord's always an option.
Whether it's games or D&D or Rise Above or
serious or not, anything. It can be anything. Yeah.
Yep.
There's the Discord there. I don't know if that Discord link's working still or not, but I have to get if it's not, I'll get another one. Just DM me and whisper me whatever needs to happen that I can get that for you.
It was a great conversation, great discussion. I really enjoyed hearing from you guys and talking and I mean, when we came in kind of talking about COVID, and it's fine we didn't talk about that because this is really good. So
yeah, I agree.
It's super awesome.
I agree. Juicy, TX, Uncle Jim, Rabbi, thank you all for being very vulnerable today and for contributing a lot to the conversation. It was really good. Louis, thanks for jumping in, crashing as well, coming in strong at the end there with some Mr. Lamas references. Always good to have you guys stopping by. TX, you're a solid dude. Appreciate you guys. Jim, thanks again for being vulnerable today, man. We're definitely with all of you guys, and it's always remarkable to me. Andy shared a couple weeks ago when we were talking about courage with Morg as well about losing loved ones, parents, and it sounds like a lot of us recently within the past couple of years have lost some significant others. Whether it be parents or brothers and sisters and that sort of stuff. Just know that if you ever want to chat privately or anything like that, especially, we all know who the real people are, not the trolls. Don't ever hesitate to come on board and to do exactly what we just talked about, to reach out, whether in Discord, we can do Zoom now, or if we have WhatsApp or whatever the case is, we can always do all that stuff. And we're always willing to help each other out where we can. That's what this is all about. That's what the stream is about. It's not just about laughing and having fun, although we do want to do that as much as possible. It's also about being real and available for each other. So thanks again for everybody for being exceptionally respectful of each other today and for being available to be supportive as we do.
Yeah.
Good job, Will. Appreciate
awesome.
You joining me last minute almost.
Yeah.
Well, not almost. Literally last minute today. Yeah. I'm glad you did.
It was very good.
Providential that the things happened the way they did.
Yeah.
Everyone have a great day. I will see you all in the other streams. I assume Andy is streaming tonight. I'll see you guys when I get back from the gym in Andy's stream tonight. And for the rest of you, I'll see you around Twitch. You guys are awesome. Look forward to seeing you all next week where we're going to do this Enneagram Institute It's an evaluation of me.
Yeah, it's gonna be real insightful.
Gonna be a lot of fun.
Yeah.
All right, guys, have a good one. Girls, you as well. Bye for now.